Hey everybody, I wanted to cut in here right before the episode starts and say I've been working on this video, as well as the last one, for about 2 months. In that span of time, the writer's strike and also the actor's strike started. Now, I am an actor and I am a writer. I am not in either of these unions. I'm SAG eligible, apparently, which is kind of awesome. That said, I want it to be abundantly clear, 1000% clear, in fact, 1,000,000% clear, that I stand with these unions. You've probably seen on my social media, if you follow me there, which you absolutely should, that I've shared a lot of resources and a lot of information pertaining to these strikes. Because I had started this video way before the actual strikes started, I'm going to finish this one in particular. There is a section towards the end where I'm going to amend what I had previously said, so if it sounds a little bit stranger, it's because I had to cut something out, but it's fine. Generally speaking, I support unions in general. I stand in solidarity with all of them across the world. And this one in particular is extremely, extremely important to me. That said, I still want to talk about movies, and I have a hard time not talking about movies. So, lovelies, until these corporations have decided to not be raving fucking lunatics, how about you pirate some of their movies? That's what I'm gonna say. If you want to watch the recent Little Mermaid movie, and it's no longer in theaters near you, and honestly, even if it is in theaters near you, I highly suggest that you just hop on over to any one of those lovely websites that happen to post copies of movies and don't give them your money right now. Sounds about right, doesn't it? That seems fair. Anyway, I just wanted to make it abundantly clear where I stood with all of this, which is that I'm on the side of the unions, of course, always. And I always will be. And because it is basically the central theme of this movie, I'm going to mention a movie or two. However, pirate it wherever possible, and if you really were going to see it anyway and haven't already seen it. And also, support your local unions, and support all unions, really. They need your support. As do I. So, donate where possible. I've left the links to the strike donation things. That will be in the show notes. Please go support them. Okay, great. Love y'all. Back to the video. Hey there, y'all. Welcome back for part 2 in this series about mermaids. Before we get into all of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, hi, I'm JV, aka Jayde Violet, Mermaid Jade for this video in particular. I am a voice actress, writer, seamstress, and creator here on the internet. If you'd like some interesting content, give this video a like and a comment, and subscribe for more stuff coming soon. This is a part 2 of 2. If you've not seen part 1 yet, please go back and watch that. It's kinda, one, really good, and also has a lot of context in it that you're gonna want for this one. I am aiming to use footage here that won't be demonetized, even though my channel is not currently monetized. However, making videos is a rather timely venture, so if you would like to support my channel and me as a creator, and you would like for your name to be in the credits amongst other things, including, perchance at some tiers, a tarot reading monthly from yours truly, you can support me as a creator on Patreon. The link for all of that is in the description down below. I appreciate any support that you can offer. Thank you so very much. This video took a lot longer and I had to learn new skills for it that I wasn't really prepared to learn. So I hope you enjoy it. And again, I would love a little bit of support on Patreon. That would be lovely. Anyway, so where we left off last video, we talked about the flip-flop in perspective. Basically, marginalized people, being the innovators that we are, and culture makers naturally, we found yet another take on the mermaid myth. The more modern versions of mermaid mythology tend to take the point of view of the mermaid themselves, giving them hope and wishes, and using them as a metaphor for our own existences and experiences. This is the case with arguably the most famous mermaid story of all time. I am, of course, referring to La Sirenita, Le Sirène, Den Lille Havrouw, Awon Kekereya Moya, The Little Mermaid, from 1835 by Hans Christian Andersen. Let me break down this little story right here for y'all real quick, just in case you forgot. So, once upon a time, or whatever, there's a young mermaid who lives in the ocean with her sisters, her dad, who is the king of the ocean, and her grandma, who is old and cool.
She's got a point. She's an icon. She's a legend. And she is the moment. Now, come on now.
Anyway, all of her sisters go up to the surface, one by one, and they see some pretty cool things up there. And they bring back stories about the cool things that they saw up there. Okay, so then, finally, it's time for the youngest to go up to the surface, and they see a human man who is kinda fine, from a distance anyway. She sees this human and is like, oh my god, he's like everything? And then the dude gets into like a shipwreck or whatever, and she saves his life, and then says, girl, he is so hot up close, oh my god, ah! So then she goes home, and she tells her grandma about this human boy. Her grandma tells her about the humans, including telling her granddaughter that mermaids don't have souls, and that they die in about 300 years. So then the Little Mermaid goes to a witch who lives in the sea. One might call her even a sea witch. And she's all like, girl, I love him. Make me human so I can be with him. And the witch gives her a potion and takes her tongue as payment for some reason. And she tells her that when she goes walking, it'll feel like knives in her feet when she walks. Homegirl takes a little sip of that potion and becomes human. And then the prince finds her, and then she remembers that there was one rule, which is, if he doesn't marry you and he marries another woman, you will die the next morning because you weren't given half of his soul in the marriage. So, guess what happens? Lo and behold, the prince meets another girl and marries that other girl. So sad for the Little Mermaid. So then the mermaid is sitting on the wedding boat after the wedding, and she's like crying or whatever, and then her sisters show up. Though they look a little bit different. Her sisters were all like, "Girl, we sold our wigs, but we have a knife!"
Let me see what you have! A knife! No!
Oh my God.
Girl, if you kill him, you can come back home and live with your bald-headed sisters and a sad-ass story to tell. But at least you'll be alive. So the Little Mermaid's like, okay? But then she was like, nah, and kills herself by jumping overboard. But because she didn't kill him, a spirit of the air shows up and is like,
"Hey, boss babe. Would you like to be your own boss and get your own soul? Join this MLM where we sell blessings to good little kids and you'll get your soul in like 300 years or something."
The end. And that right there, my darlings, is the reason this video has taken me so long to get together and put out. So I really hope you enjoyed that. So, I think it's pretty clear what is different about this story, right? The thing Hans Christian Andersen did that was unique was making us think about mermaids from their perspective, rather than the human man's viewpoint. It puts a marginalized being at the center. He made the mermaid a vehicle to tell an entirely different story. One both more subversive and more relatable to the masses. This is why it is a story that has managed to stand the test of time. And part of that is its inherent queerness. And while we're on the subject of this story's inherent queerness, I've got a bit of beef with a few straight women in Denmark who decided they wanted to say that Hans Christian Andersen wasn't homosexual because he didn't get bucked in the thumb in his lifetime.
Girl, what the fuck is you talking about?
Girl, of course he was queer. Child, don't be so goddamn obtuse. No straight man has ever said, "I love you like a Calabrian wench would love you," to another man without that person being extremely queer. He may have been celibate due to, I don't know, literal religious trauma and indoctrination, but that doesn't make that person any less queer, Martha. This is literally how historical marginalization continues to happen. We need to call out the weird bullshit like this when we see it. I understand that back in the day, certain terms would not necessarily have existed. I get that. Like, what we all know is true about this is that at the time that he lived, it would have been illegal to do those actions that the church had deemed immoral. That doesn't mean the desire to do them disappeared. And even if he didn't have those desires, having those desires themselves is not what makes a person queer. We understand what queerness is today, in no small part because of the experiences of queer people from the past, like Hans Christian Andersen. Kaz Rowe said it perfectly in a recent video on this very platform, which I will now paraphrase. If that person were alive now, they would experience the same marginalization that queer people experience. That makes them queer. The act of ducking doesn't make someone gay, and to insinuate as such is honestly absolutely disgusting and completely disrespectful on your part to limit the experiences of a group of people that you don't belong to. People like these women are trying to remove us from history, and it's genuinely fucking disgusting. Get it together, ladies. Anyway, it's widely known now that this story is written based on the experiences Hans Christian Andersen had with a specific dude, Edvard Collin. Just like how The Snowman, another one of his fairy tales, was written about another dude that he wound up falling in love with. Actually, to spite those Uvi on the Teva, here is my almost one-to-one retelling fanfiction of The Little Mermaid, wherein it is a 90s rom-com / romantic drama period piece set in the 1830s. And let's tell it through the magic of queer theater. Okay, so, once upon a time, or whatever, there was this twink, we'll call him Lil Twink, who was gay, and was living his gay little life in the underground gay scene of Victorian society. His little section of the LGBT community pool their money together each and every year to send one of their boys to a ball in polite society. You know, to give the boys just one good night out. Afterwards, they would all gather and gossip to the other dolls about all the hot sailors and the girls in the pretty gowns. Beautiful gowns, beautiful gowns. So, it's finally Lil Twink's turn. So Lil Twink goes out and he has an absolute blast. But he also sees and saves one really hot sailor, or possibly a prince, who knows, from getting robbed by the street urchins. Ooh. So, after Lil Twink saves him, Lil Twink goes home and asks one of the other older gay men, we'll call this one Mama just because it's cute, "Hey, Mama, how do I get with one of those sailors?" And this auntie is like, "The only way to get what you want is to become a straight girl. But honey, you're far too hot to do all of that. And also, it's not like you have the money." So, the Lil Twink then goes to an old queen, who in this case we'll call Auntie, because I want to. Now, Auntie was one of them actors who played women in the theater. So Little Twink says, "Hey, make me a lady." The old queen says, "Girl, absolutely." She grabs a corset and puts her in shoes that are slightly too small and hurt like a motherfucker. But then she gives her a wig and a lash, and the twink becomes Twinkette. Auntie tells Twinkette that Twinkette really shouldn't, verbally talk to the sailor, because then the illusion will be broken if her voice is, slightly too low, if you catch my drift. So then Twinkette goes back out, meets the sailor, they fall in love, but Twinkette doesn't come from money, so there is no dowry, so the sailor chooses to marry some hot rich girl. Twinkette is heartbroken and goes back to their little gay family and cries. The little gay family says, "Now wait a minute, hold on 1 second, please. You could threaten to expose the sailor in public if he doesn't give you the money. And then, when he gives you the money, you can bring that money right on back here. How does that sound, sweetheart?" Twinkette goes to the sailor to do this, but instead just tells him, "Listen, I'm not Twinkette. I'm actually Lil Twink. But it's okay. Ain't nobody ever gonna know, and you ain't never gonna see me again anyway." So then he tries to go back to his gay family, but they are avoiding Lil Twink now because somebody found out about what had happened, and also he's depressed and kind of a lot to be around. It's a whole thing. So the little twink just decides one day, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna take all of the stories that I've heard, all of the experiences I have had, and I'm gonna turn them into fables. And I'm gonna become a writer of children's stories. Because at least that way, I can bring a little bit of joy to the rest of the world. And one of the first stories he pens is The Little Mermaid. The end. Oh, how marvelous. Okay, obviously it's not exactly a perfect one-to-one, but high-key the walking on knives and glass thing being a reference to shoes/high heels being too tight made perfect sense to me, and that is actually the entire reason I animated that entire thing. Incredible. Also, personally, I would watch the fuck out of that movie. It would probably be one of my favorites. Comment down below if you agree, or if you think I should write it out and make it more of a thing. If I may be sincere for a moment, the queerness inherent to The Little Mermaid, and indeed all modern mermaid fiction, is rooted in a type of yearning. The deep wanting to go from one ill-fitting world to another better suited to you, seeking something more than what the circumstances of your birth would allow you to have. The desperate hope we cling to that says that out there, somewhere, happiness and acceptance await us. Our resilient belief in love and truth is enough to sustain that hope. It's one of the reasons why I am always so proud to be queer. It's truly one of the most beautiful things to see, day after day. The indomitable power of the queer spirit. However, let's talk about that ending a little bit, though. The ending's a little bit contentious, isn't it? I described it in the first story kind of like an MLM, partially because I thought it was funny, but also because that particular section of story feels very tied to some type of religious guilt. P.L. Travers, aka the lady who wrote Mary Poppins, called it blackmail, which is a little bit wild in my personal opinion, but not fully off base. And over the years, that very contentious ending has changed rather a lot through the various adaptations that have occurred. Here are some of those very same adaptations and the way that they change the ending of the story. Shirley Temple's storybook in 1961 changed it so the mermaid would be able to go back home, because Neptune said so. I don't know, it's kinda sweet. The episode is free on YouTube if you'd like to watch it. This was actually the very first thing of Shirley Temple's that I've ever seen, which is kind of wild. But I definitely recommend giving it a watch. It is free on YouTube, so go check it out. Link in the description. Rushalka, from 1978, has some random man sacrifice himself in a battle to the death with the prince, and that somehow gives the mermaid the random man's soul, so she is able to live on. I'll be honest, I don't really get this one. This one is also available for free on YouTube. I'll link it below. It has subtitles, but girl, it is very 70s, and I'll be honest, I didn't really love it that much. And as you could probably tell, we went from the 60s to the 70s, and now we're gonna make our way to the fabulous 80s. 1984 saw the release of the movie Splash. This movie is quite a bit different from the traditional Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid story. But distilled to its core, it is a love story between a human and a mermaid, wherein the mermaid has to, for a time, become human. This one ends with the human man giving up his human life to live with the mermaid that he loves. This actually makes the story incredibly unique, in that it's actually, I believe, one of the first happy endings for Little Mermaid-style stories. I have linked to this film down below, where you can watch it without having to give any particular company money. I have a lot to say about this movie in particular, as this movie is literally the reason I became a professional mermaid all of those years ago. But if you want to hear me talk more about this, the best way for you to do that is to keep an eye out for the podcast episode about this movie with the podcast You Are Good, with Sarah Marshall and Alex Steed. Sarah and Alex are two of my favorite human beings on the whole internet. I will link the show in the description, and I will link the specific episode when it goes live. Side note, if you're not listening to every show in the Hobbs-Marshall verse, or as I actively call it, the Good Egg universe, you are missing out. The shows within this universe are You're Wrong About, American Hysteria, Maintenance Phase, You Are Good, Bechdel Cast, This Ends at Prom, and If Books Could Kill. All of these will be linked below, including some of my favorite episodes. Please give them a listen. I love them all so much. I love all their shows so much. I've been listening to them for literal actual years. Also, if you really want me to talk about Splash more in depth, you can also go onto Patreon and suggest the topic when you sign up. I am more apt to listen to topic suggestions that patrons give me, sort of naturally. Okay. Real quick. I'm just going to remind everyone about my statement from the beginning. I support the WGA strike. I support the SAG strike. These next two movies that I'm going to be talking about are from a struck company. For this stage of the video, I'm entering into review territory. Let me be as plain as I possibly can be here. I believe writers and actors like myself deserve to be paid fairly and ethically and compensated for the work we've done. As such, I am not advising you to watch these films, especially not on streaming. Just simply don't do it. If you would like to see these movies, the best way to do that is... Hoist your Jolly Roger, sail the high seas of the internet, hornswoggle the gluttonous CEOs, make like the privateers, buccaneers, and freebooters of old, and sand the bastards to David Jones' locker. And all ye landlubber scabs and snitches best be on your guard, for dead men tell no tales. Mermaids and pirates go hand in hand after all. Ha 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 ha! Avast! Let us discuss the story of the lassie from the briny deep, known as Atlantica. That is the most insane thing I've ever said in a microphone. Woo! The 1989 Disney movie made a really big change to the story, sort of obviously, which is that they gave the Little Mermaid a name, and they gave her the name Ariel. Prior to this, in the actual story itself, the Little Mermaid didn't even have a name. She was just the Little Mermaid. But this time around, they gave her a name, and they also gave her dreams, and they gave her a goal. And they gave her something to want and strive for. That thing did ultimately happen to be a man, but okay. In fairness, she did also enjoy humans and their world before she knew that that man ever existed. So there's that. This also kept up the tradition that Splash did of giving the Little Mermaid a happy ending. We love that for her. So, of course, you knew we were going to talk about it. I did, in fact, see The Little Mermaid 2023 in theaters on opening night. And as you probably guessed, I absolutely adored the movie. They managed to take this story that is nearly 200 years old and has been retold so many times, and they still managed to do something new and different with the way that they told the story. And no, it's not just that the main mermaid is now black, though that was pretty goddamn cool. Also, I just realized something that is exceptionally delightful to me, almost exclusively just to me, but I have to tell you this. So, Jonathan the Tortoise is 191 years old right now, which means that this tortoise is 2 years older than the publishing of The Little Mermaid. There is a creature walking the earth right now that is older than this fairy tale. And do you want to know what else is absolutely amazing about that? Jonathan is also queer. Yes, you heard me correctly. Jonathan the Tortoise is queer. His mate since 1991, which by the way was a year after I was born and I think might be my fault, has been a tortoise named Frederick. I adore Jonathan and Frederick. They make me very happy. I love them very much. They mean a lot to me. I just needed y'all to know that about Jonathan. Anyway, here's a video clip of Jonathan, because I think he's adorable. And this motherfucker is older than the Little Mermaid fairy tale. I love him. I love him so much. Anyway, back to The Little Mermaid 2023. The other thing that this movie did that was really incredible was that it gave mermaids a reason for existing other than fall in love with a dude or even kill a dude for the honor of the ocean. Mermaids in this story serve as guardians of the sea, healing reefs, protecting the underwater inhabitants, that type of thing. This story also managed to give our lovely protagonist much more noticeable fire, emotion, and curiosity about the world around her. You can literally hear it in the way that Hallie sings Part of Your World and all of its reprises. She captures that longing, that queer longing that I mentioned earlier, that yearning. I truly do find Hallie's version of Part of Your World superior to the original. Obviously, though, the original is iconic, like, duh. Jodie Benson is a very technically good singer, of course. And so is Hallie. But Hallie also added the undeniable soul and fire that is in the performance of this song. You can hear in her voice the frustration and desire that she has when she is singing about how much she wants to explore the world above. This movie also shows Ariel being intelligent in some rather subtle ways that we didn't get to see in the 1989 movie. Like, for example, using the reflection to trick the shark in the beginning of the movie. And also later on figuring out how to take Ursula out while she was on the boat. The movie goes out of its way to show the knowledge and drive that she has. And in doing so, it avoids the born sexy yesterday trope, while still holding on to the fish out of water trope. It also puts her on a pretty level playing field with her love interest, which I absolutely love personally. Also, real quick, we're gonna need to have a little talk about something pertaining to this movie. I personally don't think that she bewitched Eric at any point during this movie. I don't think she did that when she used her song on him. Or at least, I don't think she did long term. I don't think she made him fall in love with her. I think what she was trying to do when she did sing to him was to bring him back to life and back to consciousness because he had almost drowned. But even if that was the reason she was bringing him back, the effects of the siren song are shown in the movie to be temporary. Because Vanessa needs to keep using the siren call to convince Eric to fall in love with her. And how he behaves toward Vanessa when he is under that spell versus how he behaves with Ariel is how I know that there is a vast difference between hypnosis and the actual love and affection that he feels for Ariel. Wild Uncharted Waters, as a song, shows that he longs for adventure and that girl who saved him, not just the girl. I might be more inclined to agree with y'all that say that she, sort of magically roofied him almost. If they had used the song Her Voice from the musical version of The Little Mermaid. But he just likes mystery and is drawn to this mystery rather than being hypnotized into loving a gorgeous, gorgeous woman. Honestly, y'all, between this and the way that people in the fandom were simping over Vanessa and the Vanessa actress, which includes dumbasses who were claiming that it was the Vanessa actress who was singing when it was obviously and clearly Halle, I feel like some of y'all, particularly some of the white people in the fandom, have been very transparently trying to discredit Halle as Ariel because you're just simply not trying to feel the same level of empathy for a young black girl that you would for the white characters of this movie. How about y'all go do a little bit of self-analysis of your own, a little bit of self-reflection about why the hell y'all had such a problem with this brilliant and talented performer bringing Ariel to life. How about you go think about that? Thank you. Anyway, no matter how you look at mermaids in pop culture, something is very different about the way that we view mermaids now than how we did in the past. Whether we're watching fish out of water love stories like Splash or Aquamarine, H2O Just Add Water, or even Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Or whether we're watching the horror mermaids like The Lure or the show The Siren, or Erzuli, which, by the way, is an amazing movie. I've linked in that one specifically in the show notes, and I will tell you to go watch that one because that one was an independent movie and not from a struck company. Go watch Erzuli, it's incredible. Or whether we're watching queer allegories like The Little Mermaid and all of its many adaptations. There is always something calling out to us from the deep. My question for you, my dear, dear lovelies, is this. As you look out over the water, over the shore, into the wild, uncharted waters, and into the mysterious fathoms below, when you hear the mermaid's cry and the siren's song, will you heed them? Will you follow their call? Or will you stay behind and always wonder as you look out on that shore what adventures might have awaited you beneath the deep blue sea? Woo! Alrighty. And that completes our duology, I suppose, of videos about mermaids. Thank you all so much for coming with me on this journey. This took me an entire 3 months to write, produce, film the parts where I had to film things. Girl, I had to learn how to do basic animations in Final Cut Pro. Child, this was wild. Anyway, I'm glad this is done, and I'm glad this is out there. I also want to give a massive shout out to my friend David, who has been making some really cool videos. I've linked his channel below because I love the work that he's been managing to do, and I want to encourage him to do more of it. And also, I want you to go check out the stuff that he's done. And also, I want to thank him especially for helping me work through some of the things I want to do with this platform going forward. David, I love our conversations. Thank you so much, buddy. And yeah, I am sure I will see you again very, very, very soon. But until then, be well, do as much good work for the world as you can. And of course, stay safe out there. Also, watch out for them nets. Girl, Marshall been leaving them nets outside for some reason. I don't know why, but he just be leaving them in the water, and then I'll be swimming, and then I'll run into his net, and girl, like, Marshall, pick up your net. Oh my God. Ridiculous. Anywho, bye-bye.